Hello and welcome to the Love of the Star podcast for Tuesday, April 14th, with a wonderful guest, Joe Hoyt of the Dallas Morning News, getting us set here as we are 9 days away from the NFL draft. I'm Eric Chiafalo with the Woolly Bully Zach Wolchuk, and we're gonna just three-man weave this thing in a draft bonanza. And Joe's already asking the important questions. Joe, what was your question about our particular podcast right before we turn the microphones on?
Yeah, I'm a big inflection guy, right? And I believe that things can be versatile. So when I've seen For the Love of the Star, I've always wondered, like, is it like for the love of the star, or is it like for the love of the star? And I think the inflection is important, and I think we've circled back to this being an Italian based podcast. Am I right?
Yeah, that's the heart and soul, man. That's the heart and soul of this thing, and we do love it. Despite Wolchuk wearing his Texas Rangers polo, that's just simply because the Rangers got a victory last night. But he's got Cowboys all around the place. He's decorated all of his feng shui. He's got cowboy couch covers. He's got cowboy pillow cases and quilts, and this is in the master bedroom. Okay, Wolchuk dictates things in his house. Mm-hmm. Yes, he does.
Damn right.
And he's definitely got that love of the star beating in his chest. Now, Joe, we sit here, man. Things are starting to get a little crazy. Okay, I mean, we got a lot to discuss with trading up and Ruben Bane and that whole situation, where the Cowboys stand on some of these premium guys. Jermod McCoy, we can get your stamp of disapproval for him as well, as we've gotten it from just about everyone else. But I think we should start with the Ruben Bane stuff, because he's a guy that is super, super talented. Some people have him as their number one edge in this class. For a while, it felt like there's no way he would be there at 12. Then it started to feel like, okay, maybe the short arms would get him there. And now you add in this whole car accident, super tragedy from a few years ago that apparently teams have already known about for a while. It's just being made, public now over the weekend. But how do you think this is landing with the Cowboys when it comes to Ruben Bane, and how much they actually would be willing to take him at 12?
No, it's a fantastic question, because I think anytime we're talking about any prospect, there's just so many factors, right? If you look at a prospect's scouting report from like an inside the team perspective, it is littered with like different elements and different factors. And I think ultimately, when you start adding more ifs or more questions, the more questions someone gets asked, the farther they fall down the board. And I think this is certainly a question. And I think the thing that we're all trying to kind of decipher, and like, let's be candid about something for a second. There's a game to like the draft prep from a media perspective, right? In terms of knowing, when we see Ruben Bane, we see a good player, right? Wolchuk watched the film. He's like, that's a great player, right? But also like how teams value him. It's talking to our sources, but it's also sometimes kind of reading the tea leaves of what other people might do. So the thing we're trying to decipher now is, has Ruben Bane's stock been the same because people have already investigated this and they feel good about it? Or is this something where it might be revealing to us, and now we're kind of getting a sense that maybe teams don't look at Ruben Bane the same way that we've looked at him throughout this entire process? From my kind of understanding, I don't think this has changed too much. This is not a, Laramie Tunsil 10 minutes before the draft, oh, how do we respond to this situation? Because teams have had the chance to investigate him. Dane Brugler brought up a great point yesterday. The Cowboys literally had someone in that car in for a 30 visit in Kelly from UCF. So if they needed to investigate things about Ruben Bane, they did. And their teams have already known about this. I think it'll be fascinating to see what comes on draft night. But I do think that in terms of where we stand with Ruben Bane, I'm not anticipating a huge fall right now. I think you go back to Jalen Carter, for example. Jalen Carter was the number one or the 6th ranked prospect in Daniel Jeremiah's top 150 big board at the end of that draft. He ended up going 9th overall, right, to the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that teams are going to be pretty comfortable knowing where they stand, whether they like him or not, or whether they think this is a huge deal or not, moving forward into the draft in 9 days.
So if Ruben Bane Jr. is on the board there at pick 12, do you think the Cowboys would lean, yeah, we're interested in taking him? Is he not a guy that they would trade up for? But if he's there at 12, it's like, yeah, we're comfortable. Things have checked out. And then is it more of the short arm conversation that really is why he would slide versus this car accident?
I do think it's the short arms versus the projectability, and I think they wouldn't trade up for him. That's kind of my reading of the tea leaves right now. I don't think the door has been closed on him at 12 though. I don't think that this revelation is going to be something that causes them to truly say, hey, he's off our board at 12, right? Like I think some other guys fall into that category. But I think they'd be open to it because I do think, like, you guys know this too. They want an edge rusher. Like they want another young edge rusher to be opposite of Donovan Ezraku and give them kind of a young upside potential foundation, that coexists well with what they have on the inside and they've already built. I think that they can get younger, cheaper on the edge. It's a reason why they have not signed Jadeveon Clowney. I think Ruben Bane's talent is something that keeps that door open at 12 for sure.
Well, I would certainly love that, and I think most Cowboys fans would, especially if it's staying at 12 and getting him. That would feel very home run-ish without having to move up at all. But in a world where maybe they do want to move up, do you think they? Because I'm with you. Everybody's talking about the linebacker, which is obviously a screaming need as well, just based on the guys that you currently have on the roster. Do you think they view the edge rusher need as bigger? Like, would they, if they're moving up, do you think they would want to go get more of an edge rusher than maybe a Sonny Styles?
I'm kind of curious what you guys think about this too, because when I look at this draft, I think, and obviously edge rusher has always been a premium position, right? But I do think that if we're talking about who could be there at 20 versus 12, right, in terms of edge rusher, linebacker, and nickel corner, like I think or even in the second round, if you traded back to, like, let's say 39, I think the potential to get someone in those other things that could be an instant impact starter is way higher than what it would be at edge. And so I do think that there's an element of, hey, what if Arvell Reese or David Bailey slipped to 5 or 6, right? Like maybe we go up and get him. The thing I kind of keep coming back to is, like, I do think that they want to trade up. Like I think I think they're motivated to do so. But we also know when it comes to the Cowboys and Jerry Jones that they're not usually the ones that are super, proactive in terms of making those calls, right? They'd rather have things happen on their terms. They'd rather have things happen within their parameters that they're comfortable with. We saw it this offseason, right? They were willing to go for Max Crosby to a certain level. And to be honest, credit to them for not, in my opinion, going over that threshold, right?
Sure.
They were willing to go to a certain level for Devin Lloyd. Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker both chose to go to Las Vegas and play together, right? But also money talks. And if you really, 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 really wanted one of those guys, I do think you could have gone to a level beyond your comfort zone that would have been able to bring him in. So I think that, yes, if there's a team that's like super motivated to go back and is willing to do so on the Cowboys' terms, I do think that a trade happens in terms of them moving up to go secure a guy. But I just don't know if that's going to happen. That's something I think is going to be a fascinating storyline come draft night.
Yeah, I'm with you, Joe. I think like the tiers of which they would want to go and get, I think it's David Bailey, Arvell Reese would be the top guys to go up and trade for. And that's probably going to have to be either 3 to Arizona if they want to boogie out of there, 4 to Tennessee, 5 to New York. Then you're looking at Sonny Styles. Then you're looking at Caleb Downs, Mansour Delane. I think that's kind of the tiers that I'm just believing right now that you're going to have Reese or Bailey go 2. So the likelihood that you're going to get one of them is gone. And then how high do you want to go up? And maybe this ends up being this class where, Dane and Albert Breer and Daniel Jeremiah, and everyone's basically saying everyone wants to bail out of there. And I get it. If you're Arizona, if you're Tennessee, if you want an offensive tackle and Monroe Freeling's now worthy of being a top 8 pick and Caden Proctor's not worth, and you want, go back to 12. There, the value is better for you. So, yeah, I think if you're tiering them, I think you're spot on. And I do think Malachi Lawrence is a guy that I love at a UCF. And I think there's love for him at the Star. I don't know if you've heard similar things. I think 20 is too rich for them and for other teams. So if they can move back and let's say they pick up 39 from Cleveland, maybe that's the sweet spot where they could get the edge and then you take a Styles at 6.
The 6 and 39 idea just feels so if there's one trade to be made that sounds perfect, it's 6 and 39 in my opinion. And I don't know how you guys feel about this too. For 12 and 26 and 39 and maybe some other things thrown in there, because in reality, if you look at what Cleveland wants, I think Cleveland really wants a receiver, and I think they really want an offensive tackle. And I think if they moved back to 12 and 20, those would be absolute sweet spots in order to get those things, right? But also, if you're at 39 and if you were stayed at 6 and you stayed at 39, if you're Cleveland, and say you got Carnell Tate at 6, you could get another offensive tackle at 39, but it's not going to be in the same tier that you would get at 20. I do think if there's a perfect marriage trade partner to happen, it's Cleveland.
Yeah, that one is the most palatable for me as well, because moving from 20 to 39, you're still getting a very similar player. Like everybody that's studying these prospects in this draft is like, yeah, the guy you get at 20 is not going to be that much different than the guy you get at 39, and being able to go and ensure yourself one of the premium defenders that you love, whoever that may be, I think really allows you to rest easy here. How much of a swinging stick will Christian Parker have when it comes to this particular draft?
It's got to be huge. I mean, I think when you look at, and I think it's kind of connected to the ability and the big swing ability of Brian Schottenheimer. Like, I think if you look at what's happened since Brian Schottenheimer's become head coach, and I think it's worth noting, like originally the Cowboys were intrigued by Brian Schottenheimer as an offensive coordinator, instead of being a head coach, right? Like a true play caller. And then Brian Schottenheimer doing what Brian Schottenheimer does, motivated them to make him the head coach. And I think what's happened in the year and change since Brian Schottenheimer's become head coach is that say has grown more. Has grown stronger, has grown bigger in terms of the voice. I think that's why you saw him take more of a proactive and active use of the draft process this year. And I think Christian Parker is kind of a tangent to that. Like, I think Christian Parker, in a very similar way, has the certain kind of voice and motivation and aura that Brian Schottenheimer brought last year. I've been saying it. I went on to multiple pro days. I went to the combine. I went to the Super Bowl. I went to the owners' meetings, and I'm not kidding when I say this, guys. Every single person in the league, like one of the first or last things they said to me is, "Oh, by the way, Christian Parker, great hire, great hire." Like it was pretty insane. Like literally, that was the last thing David Mulligetta said to me at Texas Pro Day was like, "Oh, by the way, Christian Parker, that's a dude." Like I think that when it comes to his reputation, it's going to really, they've given him all the keys. Like, they trust him. They've heard all the good things about him. They believe he's smart. They believe he's a great teacher. Shoot, Jerry Jones was talking about wide 9 techniques and the difference between those in certain systems. Like Christian Parker, I think, is going to have a lot of influence on this draft. And don't be surprised if the guys they select really fit what he's looking for.
It's interesting to me because I feel as though the Cowboys have always had this height, weight, arm length, measurable profile, specifically when it comes to defensive backs.
Great
and
call,
I know you're a champion for the short kings here, Joe. Shout out to the short kings. I love my tiny DBs, and I think this is a great draft class for the tiny DB. So how different is the focus that maybe Christian Parker's implemented from just that line of thinking for this year's draft class?
Well, first off, Chief, are you on the Short Kings bandwagon here? Like, because I think it's little men syndrome is what we call it, LMS, and I think we get angry, but we're tough and we're motivated. Like, are you a Short King believer as well?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm an ally, and I feel like you guys have they play with an edge. These guys play with a little bit of an edge. And they usually bring another trait that's pretty special. They have the dog in them. There's a quickness factor, especially when you're looking at some of these guys in this draft. Athletic is all hell. I mean, these guys are like, I'm looking at D'Angelo Pons and I'm like blown away at this dude can jump through the roof. Like, and this dude's physical, and this dude wants to get in the mix and get physical with everybody as well, and tackling and everything. So yeah, I got no issue with having some of these small guys. I'm right in line with you fellas.
Well, I appreciate that first off. But yeah, no, I think Wolchuk, you bring up a great point about just the arm length stuff, right? Like, Kobe Durant is not a guy that they would have signed, previously. Some of these guys are not people they would have looked at. But I think that it doesn't matter in terms of length. I did a story on this earlier this offseason. Like for them, length doesn't matter because one, the main thing is processability, right? But it's also to Chief's point, it's the kind of the quick twitch athleticism that allows them to cover space in a way that maybe some other guys don't, right? Like I said like Ephesians Prysock, right? Like is that a guy like yes, in terms of length, he can cover space, right? But like, what about the quick twitch ability of D'Angelo Pons, who might be able to cover more space because of the mind processing, which allows maybe a quick twitch? And that's not to say Prysock doesn't have the mind processing ability, right? But like, if you can think faster and if you can have the athleticism to get somewhere faster, then that can eradicate some of the concerns that you have with space in terms of length. And I think that that's one thing that Christian Parker believes in. And that's why I think that it's a tangible example, to Wolchuk's point, of the way that they trust Christian Parker in a way that on defense so far, in terms of the personnel, they have moved differently and they might be moving differently come the draft.
I love it.
Ephesians Prysock, Washington corner, just so everybody knows. I don't think we've talked about him a ton. So just, Washington's got two corners that are like 6'3", pterodactyl-like wingspans, but not necessarily your quick twitch, shorter, smaller DBs.
But you know what's crazy about that is like a year ago, like we that's all we'd be talking about. Or like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, hey, 6'3", long arms, like this is perfect. And that's something that's kind of been followed the Cowboys for a long time, but it's funny, not this year. And honestly, before the trade of Osa Digizou and Solomon Thomas, we weren't talking about defensive tackles much either. And now you kind of got to circle back there a little bit as well. So funny draft so far for sure.
No, I'm telling those guys, get ready to learn Commander, buddy, because Dan Quinn's going to be all over you.
100%.
All right, you're listening to the Love of the Star podcast. Love of the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast. Presented by the On Time Experts, the official AC heating and plumbing partner of the Dallas Cowboys, the Dallas Stars, and right here on Love of the Star. And hey, listen, before summer temperatures come on a full blitz, schedule a first-time $59 AC tune-up and professional cleaning with the On Time Experts. Right now, On Time Experts, proud official partner of the Dallas Cowboys, is offering first-time customers a complete AC tune-up and cleaning for just $59. And here's the truth. You get the dirt, the dust, and the debris. They're the number one killers of air conditioners. They clog coils, choke airflow, strain your system, and lead to costly breakdowns. And they're the only company that actually removes all that harmful buildup, not just a quick once-over, in and out in 30 minutes. They take everything apart. They clean it. They take up to 2 hours. It is absolutely amazing. And when they give your AC a clean bill of health, they provide you with a no-breakdown guarantee. You simply cannot beat that. So don't wait for the heat to sack your system. Go to theontimeexperts.com. Schedule your $59 tune-up today. That is the ontimeexperts.com. All right, we continue here with Joe Hoyt of the Dallas Morning News. 9 days till the draft. And the one of the things that I've been most fascinated by is the idea of this nickel hybrid player in this Christian Parker scheme. And it seems like this draft has a lot of quality guys with maybe a little bit different skill sets, but that could maybe fit that role. And I'm just curious, where's your mind at with how that they want to go and approach this, and how quickly will it be on day one? Like, how do they go about addressing this particular role?
Yeah, Chief, I think you hit it kind of on the head when you talked about how different some of these guys are. Like in theory, like if you think of like a slot corner, from yesteryear, right? You're thinking of a very, very specific guy, right? I think you'd only be thinking of Jordan Lewis. Now you kind of think of things as, hey, there are big nickel corners out there that can fill the spot, or there's some other guys. Like I think if you look at the safeties, for example, right? Like Caleb Downs, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, and Dylan Thieneman, all very, very different types of players that all in some way could fill a slot corner position on a defense. I think that's something that can, like, I think Caleb Downs would be perfect. Like, and Wolchuk's been on this, Chief, I think you too. Like, Caleb Downs is my favorite player in this draft, number one player. I think if you draft him, you throw a party. You get you get the ink ready for the second contract, because I think for 10 years that's your guy and you don't have to worry about it. And I think that would be a guy who would fit perfectly in terms of the versatility to not only have him at safety but to come down. But they also have a guy like Jalen Thompson, now with the Cowboys, which makes me think that I don't think that Emmanuel McNeil-Warren might be the same fit in terms of what, it might have been prior to that signing, right? In terms of their potential. Ultimately, they're looking for guys with versatility. If we're looking at a true slot corner, I think for me, and I think the Jordan Lewis replacement, idea is something that's very prevalent in their mind. Like go back to the end of the year press conference when we walked off with Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
One of the first things he said was, "Man, we sorely miss Jordan Lewis, and more than we expected." And I think that that's something that's been on their minds all season last year, trying to remedy that, and has been on their minds this offseason as well. And I think the guy that, if we're talking about maybe the closest true played in the slot, a lot, corner that fits Jordan Lewis is Avion Terrell. I'm not concerned about the 40-yard dash in the hamstring stuff. I think that guy, if we're talking about the dog, the quick foot ability, I think that's someone at 20 that would make a ton of sense.
What about Keontae Scott, the defensive back from Miami? I know our buddy Nick. Yeah, what do you think about him, and how much is he like maybe even in play at 20 for Dallas?
Yeah, I love him. 20 feels a little rich. But I mean, the funny thing about this, and you guys, I mean, I'm sure have talked about this a lot too. There is probably 25 guys that like you'd be like, oh man, that's a little rich at 20, and then you're like, but wait, like they might go at 20 because this draft is weird. Like I know you're a big Chris Johnson guy, Wolchuk, right? Like Chris Johnson, like if the Cowboys took him at 20, the first I'd be like, wow, that's rich. And then you might wait till the next day and you see that like, oh wait, a guy that they were talking about potentially taking at 20 was also there at 45. Like it's a weird draft. So I think that there's just a lot of flexibility in terms of who you could take at 20. I think the Cowboys are going to go find their guys, right? Whether or not, at 20 specifically or trading back, whether or not the value might not be perfect in that situation. I think if they get wiped out, that like a guy like Akeem Mesidor at 12 is not something that's crazy to think about, right? So it's a really weird draft, guys. And I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like that made sense at 20 or 39 or 45 or 50.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, and that's why when people want to, I don't want to trade both ones. Well, it's like you have to look at this draft class is strange. Everything that you've said, you're right. And that's why, to me, at 12, is it worth it to sit on your hands and pray that Downs gets to you?
No.
Or pray that whoever – no. Go get the guy that you want, whether it is, hey, maybe Arvell Reese slides or David Bailey slides, or it's Styles or it's Downs or Delane. Like, those are the players to me that are worthy of moving up for. Go get it. And then if I forfeit the 20th pick, but I'm able to pick up the second, all the guys that we're talking about at 20 – I know Jacob Rodriguez, I love, and you got me excited. Hey, it sounded like the Cowboys might have felt the same way about him. Chris Johnson, we just talked about. Avion Terrell, who you brought up. Keontae Scott, Malachi Lawrence from UCF. All of these guys, it's like at 20, maybe it's too rich. At 39, plus Anthony Hill Jr., who I know you're high on as well. All those guys are way more in play, and the value's there for them. So, I mean, I get it. In other drafts, it's like, man, do I want to give up 12 and 20? Maybe not. This year's class, it's better to go up and ensure that you get your player in the top 10. And then if I slide back from 20 and I can add a second-round pick, you're probably going to get a guy that you were going to be taking at 20 anyway, in my opinion.
4 years from now, if Caleb Downs is a 3-time Pro Bowler and we're talking about him holding out at training camp for the fifth-year option, are we going to remember the third-round pick they gave up, 92 overall, to go get him at 9? Like, no. We're not gonna remember it. And I think it's funny, like, Wolchuk, you're naming all these names at 20. Chief, I wonder, how many names do you think we can name of guys at 20 that would make sense and would be okay with? I genuinely think it might be 20 to 25 guys, right?
100%. Yes. I mean, all these guys are all stacked up like in a very similar way, and it'll just be like a choose your flavor for each team. And like you said, you're talking about a guy at 20 and maybe he ends up going at 45. But I think that's the beauty of that hypothetical trade with the Browns, where you're moving up from 12 to 6 and you give them 20, but you get 39 in return, because there's just going to be like, that is where the meat of this draft seems to be. These kind of fringe second round graded players that stretch pretty far. And it's like, it's going to start at like the 15th player taken in this draft is probably going to be a second round graded player. And the 50th player taken in this draft is probably going to be a second round graded player. So That's the funny part about this, and it leaves everything just so wide open because you can throw 1,000 different names, and especially with the Cowboys and just how many needs they have, you're looking at multiple positions here, and then each one of those positions, it's choose your flavor with each player. And so, now, I mean, I love Wolchuk bringing up the Jacob Rodriguez thing. So you were in Lubbock, and you're at that pro day. Like, what did you learn about some of these Red Raider guys and how the Cowboys feel about him? You think because like Wolchuk is 10 out of 10 in love. So on the Wolchuk scale, where do the Cowboys fall in terms of their love for Jacob Rodriguez?
I think if Wolchuk's a 10, like I don't know if they're that far behind him, to be honest with you. But like, and Wolchuk and I have texted about this. Like, and I'll say the caveat, right? Like the Cowboys are going to like a lot of guys, right, in the draft. They like it is what it is. They're gonna be enamored with certain people. They're gonna tell people, hey, like this guy's fantastic. They were the way. So just a little behind the scenes, like I was interviewing Jacob Rodriguez just one-on-one, and all of a sudden that's when the Cowboys were leaving. And in order to leave the pro day, you had to go past where we were standing down that hallway. The way that they all stopped, dapped him up, exchanged phone numbers. We're talking about the connections with Jacob's dad. We're talking about other things that they had mentioned in dinner the previous night. Like it's like they were talking to a dang pop star. Like there was just like a vibe, and like I told Wolchuk this too. The caveat being like they do that with a lot of people, but like there was a vibe to it. And I do think that the interest in Jacob Rodriguez also makes a lot of sense when you add the context of what the Cowboys are really kind of irked about from last season, right? The two things I think on defense that they were totally like, oh God, is alignment. In terms of getting everyone aligned, everyone being on the same page, everyone being a cohesive unit, right? And that's one of the big things with Christian Parker, but also turnovers. Like, I think they were disgusted by how many turnovers or the lack thereof last season. And I think like if you look at a guy like Jacob Rodriguez, who's so conscientious in terms of his peanut punch and his forced fumble capabilities, like this is someone that I think they see as an instant remedy to some of the turnover kind of lack thereof things that happened last season. And so I think there's a ton of interest. And I think the thing that I'm trying to decide is whether or not that even has a chance at 20, or if that interest is solely for a potential trade back, maybe to 30 or to 39. I do think that there's a lot of potential interest in Jacob Rodriguez, but I think there's other people too. Dan Morgan, for example, was at Tech and Texas Pro Day. At Texas Tech, he was really talking a lot to Jacob Rodriguez, and that meeting looked like it went well too. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys are not the only ones that are in love with Jacob Rodriguez.
Yeah, man, he's awesome. He's awesome. I mean, I really think he's going to end up going in the first round. I know Bobby disagrees with that, but I think you mentioned Carolina. I think Buffalo. I think Pittsburgh are all teams that I've heard could be interested in him, and Dallas. So you might not be able to wait if you really, really want that guy. That's and it's one of those weird draft classes, as we've said. I mean, there's other linebackers that I'd like. Josiah Trotter from Mizzou. Where's he going to end up going? We've mentioned Anthony Hill Jr. from Texas, but I think Jacob Rodriguez fits really what they're looking for. If you can't get Sonny Styles and that doesn't happen with the trade up, J-Rod would be perfect.
Yeah, the turnover aspect is huge. That's part of the reason why I like Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, and maybe he's not a fit, whatever, Toledo safety, but just like guys that are a magnet to the football and can create some level of havoc here. Like how much with a Cowboys offense that one extra possession each game could go a long way for you when you have guys like Rodriguez and McNeil-Warren that just find ways to get to the ball, whether it's interceptions or forcing fumbles, things like that. Like that goes such a long way. But the other thing at linebacker I'm curious about, and a lot of Cowboys fans continue to hit us up about it. How real is the interest in them trying to flip that 92, that third round pick, and trying to go get a true Jordan Brooks level type linebacker from the Dolphins? Like, is that something they really would like to do? It's just other teams aren't really trying to dance with them right now.
Yeah, what I was told from prior to a couple weeks ago is that and when the Jordan Brooks thing was kind of flared up and some other guys, it's like I told that right now they were cool on it, like that things were not progressing. I don't think remember we kind of go back to that parameters conversation, right? About like whether or not the Cowboys want to trade up. I think that they have a comfort parameter zone too when it comes to trading for a potential veteran linebacker. I'll also say this, like this is just not source based. This is just reading tea leaves. And I kind of feel like they have a George Pickens contingency plan with linebacker. Like I kind of think that, if they get Sonny Styles, right? If for some reason, if Caleb Downs goes 5, their Sonny Styles available at 9, they trade up, they go get Sonny Styles. I think they're good, right? Okay, we don't need a linebacker, we're fine. But if they get wiped out a linebacker with 12 and 20, or if they trade back in the second, don't get one, and 92, like I could see them maybe like post draft or maybe even day 2 saying, you know what, we're comfortable now doing this. Let's go get this guy. I think that those are potential things, in the same way that the Cowboys were very cool if Tedero McMillan fell to them last year. And then when that didn't happen, they said, all right, let's go get George Pickens. It's funny. I asked John Neimer about that, by the way. And, saying like, hey, your plan was to go get McMillan. And then when that fell through, you got Pickens. And he immediately like cut me off. He's like, well, who's to say it wasn't the opposite? Who's to say that like we always had Pickens already planned. And then if McMillan fell, we were like, okay. I thought that was kind of fascinating. So I think that just in the back of my mind, I keep kind of coming back to the idea that maybe they have a Pickens-like contingency plan at linebacker.
Joe, you're an Oregon Duck. Proud of that. Dylan Thieneman was being floated out as a possibility at 12. Quack, quack, quack. I see that. I don't know of any connection from the Cowboys and Dylan Thieneman as of right now. Now, that doesn't necessarily matter, right? The Cowboys have kind of pivoted, and maybe it's because they're trying to get the media off the scent of like the 30 visit thing. The last couple of years, they've taken a player that they didn't have a connection to as a 30 visit in the first round. But the Dylan Thieneman interest, like, is it there? Is he an option at 12 if they get wiped out? Like, is he a topic of conversation at all to you?
I mean, to me, yeah. I think Thieneman would be perfect in terms of the versatility and kind of what we were talking about with the ability to kind of move all over the place. Like, the same reasons that we talk about Caleb Downs being a fantastic fit, I see the same thing with Dylan Thieneman in terms of a guy who has played multiple different roles in multiple different systems, and has looked fantastic doing so. Is he more maybe, of a total free safety, right? Like, yeah, but I also think he could go down in the box and make plays. And I do think, like, if we're talking about what they're going to do, and this is why, like, and I love Emmanuel McNeil Warren, by the way, Chief. Like, I think that I compare him to Deshaun Goldson. Like that, I love just his ability, right? But I also think if we're talking about a safety, I think you also have to plan a little bit for the Malik Hooker era to end, right? And I think that I don't know if Jalen Thompson and Emmanuel McNeil Warren truly, and maybe that's just like a bias about how he plays. That's very possible, by the way. Like, I don't know if he's a true free, right? And that's just that could be a total bias. I'm curious what you think about that. But anyways, I think Thieneman would be fantastic. To your point, Wolchuk, I haven't heard anything about them actually meeting with him, talking with him, and maybe they're just doing it behind, informally behind closed doors. And he's a guy, I'll tell you what, like, he's someone that I don't know if you need to talk to a lot to understand. Like, truly. Like, I think that his film speaks for itself. He's a very motivated, very, he's just a very process-based professional person. So I don't know if you need a lot of meetings to understand Dylan Thieneman.
Earlier on, when we were talking about 12, you had mentioned maybe some guys that you don't think are in play anymore. Obviously, Jermon McCoy. I mean, we've kind of heard that the knee, and if you have more insight on that. But is there anyone else that you think that maybe we've talked about, or just names that I don't think that they're really options there at 12 for Dallas?
Well, McCoy for sure. And like the reason why I say McCoy for sure, and I know that the 30 visit came up and everyone's like, see, they're back in on it. Like, I think people need to remember that 30 visits are also a great chance for medical evaluations, right? And to talk to someone and to kind of get them, that's a great way to really understand someone. I don't think, if you look at their secondary right now, Savone Revel has injury concerns, right? Like, I mean, we'll see if he bounces back. Cool. But that's someone they took last year with injury concerns. We saw how that went. Kalen Carson has had injury concerns. Deron Bland, as we know, is having had a second foot surgery. When I asked Jerry Jones, is that concerning? He basically said, for a lack of better words, hell yeah. So I think that they can't afford in their mind to use one of these first round picks where they need an instant impact guy on someone with potential injury concerns, even though I know it's been a longer window for McCoy than Savone Revel. So I just don't see it happening at 12. I don't see it happening at 20. Hypothetically, if they move back to 39, though, and Jermon McCoy is still on the board, I think now after the 30 visit, they have enough medical information to be like, well, I mean, now we can't really say no to him. And I know that would, like, I think that it would be very Revel like, but that's the situation where I see it happening with McCoy. I'm trying to think of like other guys that like might not be, fits or that we talked about at 12. And I can't really come up with any on the top of my head. I do think what they ultimately think about Bane is going to be fascinating. I know I said I don't anticipate a drop, but like hypothetically, if something happened, like I wouldn't be shocked. Like the way I'll say this, like Chief, you used like different flavors as an analogy earlier. I call this the Baskin Robbins draft because like there are 31 different flavors of like things that can happen. How many guys have we linked to the Cowboys, right? Like in terms of 12 and 20, like the list is insane. Like last year we were talking, okay, Tedero McMillan, Ashton Jeanty, Tyler Booker got late steam. There was a couple other offensive linemen and guys that were like, oh, maybe. This year, I feel like we have talked about 35 different guys for 12 and 20.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been crazy, and that's what makes this one a little bit more exciting, I would say, is just sort of the unknown of everything and so many different directions that it could go. But let's go ahead and dip into the Dean Julia mailbag now. You're listening to the Love of the Star podcast, Love of the Stars and Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast, presented by the On Time Experts, the official AC heating and plumbing partner of the Dallas Cowboys, the Dallas Stars, and right here on Love of the Star. And you have the On Time Experts offering first-time customers a complete AC tune-up and cleaning for just $59, and they will come in there, not just a quick once-over, in and out in 30 minutes. They take everything apart, they clean it, they take up to 2 hours. It is absolutely amazing. And when they give your AC a clean bill of health, they provide you with a no breakdown guarantee. You simply cannot beat that. So go to the ontimeexperts.com, schedule your $59 tune-up today. That's the ontimeexperts.com. And I think we got quite a few questions up in here, fellas, and I'll just tee these up for you guys. And Joe, as the guest, we will start with you. We do have from the People's Tacos on Twitter.
Oh.
The People's Tacos
on a Taco Tuesday,
and he's actually asking a little bit of a taco-esque question.
Hey,
would passing on Bane at 12, if he's there, be as bad as passing on TJ Watt and taking Taco?
I mean, it depends, right? Because like, what if they pass on Bane, or if they pass on Bane and took Mesidor, and like Mesidor ends up being a total bust, and Bane ends up being a superstar. Like the reason why we talk about Taco like we did, and obviously there were some like reasons why they took Taco over TJ Watt. It's because of TJ Watt though. Like it's not because if TJ Watt was struggled and Taco ended up being a decent 5-year guy that had a handful of sacks every year, and you were able to sign for a cheap extension and had him for like, we wouldn't be talking about it the same way. So like, it's a great question. I think it's something that we'll answer later on. And I think it's hard to kind of that's kind of a political answer, probably like a politician answer. It's hard to really truly answer that right now until we see what happens.
Same with you, Walchuk. You feel the same?
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. It's different because it's not like, I don't think it's, oh my gosh, TJ Watt, Taco, like who's the player there that you would be passing on Bane for, right? So I agree with what Joe's saying. Like, I don't think it's necessarily like, I don't even know a player to throw out there. Like, oh my gosh, like who's the comp there that would be there that is the TJ Watt or the Taco here in that scenario. So I think they could look back at it and regret, because to me, like if Ruben Bane Jr. in the arm length ends up being a thing and he doesn't work out on the edge, I think he's going to kick inside and be a really, really good 3 tech. So I think no matter what, Ruben Bane Jr. is just going to be a successful player at the next level. It might not be the initial position that you draft him for, or maybe teams do view him as a 3 tech. I thought that's what he was when I first watched him back in November, when I watched the SMU game and some others. But then you see him go through the playoff, and I'm like, dude, this guy, he's got the natural leverage, the ankle flexibility, the burst. Like, he's fine. He can do that wide 9, the 4-eye. Like, he's got a lot of versatility. So to me at 12, like, he'd be too good to pass up. But I just don't know the other player that would be in this scenario to make it comparable.
I think it would be Keldrick Falk. I think, like, if you took Keldrick Falk as someone who's like, hey, we got all the tools here, let's define him, or let's develop him, and then he ends up not doing anything. Ruben Bane, who had all the production, ends up being a star. Like, I think that would be the one. And I'll just use this as a way to go back to a question. Wolchuk, you said who at 12 you don't see. I know there's been smoke about Keldrick Falk. I can't see it. Like, I can't see someone who's not an instant impact guy, in my opinion, coming in, and that'd be a lot of pressure to put on Keldrick Falk, and I don't think that's something they would do or that lines up with them. So just a quick aside.
Okay, I love it. Yeah, Bane. I just think Bane is going to be a good player. He may not be an ace pass rusher. He may not be the bread and butter. He's going to go get you 13, 14 sacks. But I just think he is a good player. Wolchuk, you mentioned the versatility. He's just an ass kicker. And he's the type of player that when you look at really good defenses, you want a guy like that. Like, that is a guy that good defenses say, yes, please. Like, let's get up in here. And as a complimentary guy alongside Azaraku and Gary and Quinnen Williams, I just think it would be really, really strong. Now, our buddy Brandon Laurie is asking a question. This one's pretty strong here. So in a scenario where the Cowboys do end up trading up to number 6, and they do 12 to 6, and then they swap pick 20 for pick 39. What combination do you like better? Going up to get Sonny Styles at 6, and then you get a secondary player, maybe it's that hybrid safety or whatever, nickel corner at 39, or do you like moving up, getting Caleb Downs? I think I know where both of you guys are going to go with your love for Downs, but then at 39, then you take your linebacker there. So how do you like that idea?
A quick shout out to Brandon, because this question is something that the Cowboys are probably asking themselves too. The scenario based thing here is something that every NFL team is running through right now. So I think it's a great question. As you mentioned, Chief, for me, give me Caleb Downs and then give me one of the linebackers that's still there at 39, either Jacob Rodriguez or Anthony Hill or something to that effect. And let's call it a day with 2 instant impact guys. So I think if you go Sonny Styles at 6, obviously he'd be fantastic. And there's a chance it could happen, right? But I think you're kind of playing a little bit more of a dangerous game in terms of getting an instant impact, either edge rusher or secondary guy, as Brandon pointed out. So, I mean, like, if it was Sonny Styles and Keontae, I keep wanting to say Keontae George, the former Louisville guy, Keontae Scott. Yeah. Keontae Scott. If you get that combination, sweet. But I feel like that one might be a harder one to get.
Yeah, I mean, like, I could sell myself on Sonny Styles and a Chris Johnson. I don't think Chris Johnson's going to be there at 39. I think we're kind of catching up to, like, the NFL likes him a lot more, which makes me very happy. But Colton Hood, like, could he be there at 39, the corner from Tennessee? D'Angelo Ponce, is he then in play at 39? So I think that there are some good secondary players that I would definitely be interested in. Even a guy like Bud Clark from TCU. I don't think 39's too early. I know. I mean, like, that's not too early for me to talk about a Traden Stoops from Arizona. Like, there's like, Joe, how many players can we name here? There's a lot that could be in play. But to your point, and for what Brian's taught me, and shout out to the Godfather, you don't want to address the board. Caleb Downs is the guy that I would go with. And then at 39, I'm praying Jacob Rodriguez makes it. If he doesn't, Anthony Hill Jr. from Texas or Malachi Lawrence from UCF. Or maybe it's Jake Golday from Cincinnati, who we possibly haven't talked about enough as a guy that I think, if you're talking about people that can line up and do different things and be multiple, Golday from Cincinnati, I think, could be somebody that they like a lot.
Okay, we got some questions about day 3. John Hylett Jr., Trett Sr., 23. You got a handful of other ones. But when it comes to day 3 for the Cowboys, is that where you see them maybe addressing some offensive positions? Would it be O-line, tight end? This is a tight end class that really stretches. Would it be running back? How do they feel about Blue Maffa right now? Joe, take it.
Yeah, no, I think I think round 5, you're going to see a switch. In my opinion, where, like, okay, now we can start taking some offensive guys. Like, I think defensively, they need to hit at least 3 guys in their first 4 picks, right? So whether you trade 92 for something or to move up, or, I think you need to go defense and get some instant impact guys with also the ability to cover some of your bases moving forward in the top 4 rounds. But 5th round, I think you can start taking some chances on some other things. And like, I think that there are some needs. Like Luke Schoonmaker is a free agent next year, right? Like, so you're going to need another tight end moving forward in conjunction with Brevin Spanford and Jake Ferguson. They lost Jalen Tolbert, and I know, like, obviously Jalen Tolbert missed some games last season due to being inactive. Tells you what they kind of think about him. Jonathan Mingo is going to be a free agent soon. Like, they need another young receiver as well. So if you tell me that they take a receiver in the 5th or 7th round, like, it would not surprise me at all. That's where I kind of see them going. It wouldn't shock me. Like, I think this one's less of a need. In terms of wide receiver and tight end, if we're talking about the day 3 stuff offensively, it wouldn't surprise me if they took a running back, right? Like, I do think that their love for Phil Maffa is real. I think that they look at Phil Maffa almost as a draft pick in this year's class, as someone that kind of just redshirted and will be an instant, or not instant, but someone that could play a role for them this season. Obviously, Jaden Blue showed some things in the season finale last year, and I think they believe that he's growing up in terms of his maturity as well. So it wouldn't shock me if they draft a running back, but I don't think it's in the same tier as what they might look at in terms of tight end and wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Joe hit the nail on the head.
I love it. And when you say Jalen Tolbert's name, that is Miami Dolphins wide receiver 1, Jalen Tolbert. Ladies and gentlemen, at least for another 9 days. What a sad crop of receivers they have right there. A total disaster class. But this has been wonderful. Thank you to the wonderful questions. I know we didn't get to all of them, but we can circle back maybe on a later episode. But thank you for all the questions. Joe, you're the man. Thank you for your time. This has been a great treat. For Wolchuk, I'm Eric Chiafalo. Make sure you follow Joe Hoyt on Twitter at Joe J. Hoyt, Dallas Morning News. Read his work. Joe, we love you. Thank you.
Appreciate you, fellas. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Joe.
Sir.
Appreciate you, bro.
We'll be back in the coming days with more Cowboys content. It's Love of the Star presented by the On Time Experts. Until then, hands and hug pounds, everyone.